Good day, and welcome to our GS310 group presentation on nationalism. But before I dive into what we are going to be talking about today, I want to discuss our members or introduce us. My name is Nicole Franch, and I will be discussing nationalism at its fundamental base, as well as Afrikaner nationalism and how it has affected Africa today. From there, we have Jenna Schubach, Albakwepu, and Nample Masondo. We also have a research question, which is, what role did nationalism play in the formation of nation-states in present day? Now, the reason why we chose nationalism as a group topic is because it is very broad. And because of its broadness, we were able to be creative in how we drew parallels between nationalism as an ideology and countries that we live in today, and also in the countries' histories. Now, for my specific topic, I would also like to talk about what nationalism is at its fundamental base, and discuss its principles of state and national sovereignty, which is ultimately just the idea that one country has to be the center of our world, like the Roman Empire, or that one country has to be responsible for helping and molding other countries, like the United States of America. And then we also have the other countries that fall into play here, the ones that maybe don't get enough credit in this moment, like South Africa with our own African, South African, and Afrikaner nationalism. It is a very modern ideology, and it is very present in our day-to-day. I will also be talking about its challenges of globalization and diaspora, and even migration and immigration, and how that is changing the idea of nationalism, and that one race has to be the predominant, which for some reason is still a very prominent topic in our current history. From there, I will also be discussing nation states, which is basically just the territorially bounded sovereign states in the name of community and culture. And I think here in South Africa, it is very important that we discuss this, because each of our races here in South Africa each feel their own sense of superiority and importance. And I think that although it is just an ideology, it plays very heavily into our political and social system. Therefore, my subtopic for the group is going to be Afrikaner nationalism, especially around the basis of South Africa and its growth. I will be discussing the rise of Afrikaner nationalism after the South African War and during the apartheid era. I will also be discussing the fall of Afrikaner nationalism after the golden age of Afrikaner nationalism and apartheid, and how we see parallels between World War II, the end of communism, and the end of apartheid. I will also be discussing its impacts and consequences, especially in our society today. And something that is probably the main focus and my main stance is that for centuries, nationalism has plagued the development of countries by creating the idea of nation states. This principle of state ideology is still present in South Africa today and is seen across the board of races in the country. This topic is very important to me because I feel that as a country, we like to lay rest to our past injustices, but we forget that these things are still affecting us today, and therefore I will be discussing in depth how this idea of Afrikaner nationalism, and even how the rise of African nationalism, has plagued the development of South Africa. Moving on to our next subtopic, we have Jenna Schubach with Nationalism under Nazi Germany and the National Party of South Africa.
Welcome to my portion of the GS310 Nationalism Group project, in which my group is focusing on the role that nationalism played in the formation of present-day nation-states. Welcome to my subtopic of the research for the group work. My question is, nationalism, an unexpected relationship between the Nazi Party of Germany and the National Party of South Africa during the 20th century. In response to why I have chosen to do this topic, I have said the following. Perhaps it is idealistic of me, however, I would like to understand how prejudice takes place and people often stand by and let it happen. In the case of the Nazi Party of Germany and the National Party of South Africa during the 20th century, these two factions have committed some of the grossest violations of human rights in living memory. Could the fervor of their actions be a consequence of the rise of nationalism that began in the 19th century, and as each party grappled with what they felt was a great injustice to their people? To conduct my research, I am making use of two historical approaches, the transnational approach and the comparative approach. I decided to use the transnational approach because it allows one to focus the research scope beyond a strictly national perspective, which is necessary as I will be consulting two parties that are both similar but uniquely different. With the comparative approach, I am aware that there is quite a bit of criticism regarding it, but if it is done properly, especially when one uses the historical hallmarks in reasoning, one might uncover previously undiscovered connections that make often new insight to the research. Simply put, I plan to implement these approaches by sifting through the evidence by asking whether nationalism contributed to the decisions that were made, and to continuously ask myself whether the evidence substantiates the research question by identifying historical problems, testing significant possible conclusions, and so on. I am making use of several resources in order to write this research assignment. With that being said, if you do not mind, please pause the video so that you could look through the examples that I have provided below, but understand that this is just a small number of the sources that I am consulting, considering that it is such a broad topic. To conclude, as I mentioned earlier, it may be an attempt to create a utopian answer for an imperfect world, but I believe that it is important to try and understand why so many have stood by and allowed tragedy to take place. After all, is that not what history is about? Nationalism is an essential theme when considering history from the 19th and 20th centuries. It has shaped modern countries, but it may also have been the reason why the zealots of our past have acted in the ways that they have. That is what this research assignment aims to uncover.
Greetings, my name is Alva Kwepo and our topic is nationalism. My subtopic is African nationalism. And our question is, what role did nationalism play in forming nation states in present day? And our approach is transnational historical approach, which refers to study of movement of forces that expand beyond national borders. It is linked to comparative and global history or international and diplomatic history. With that being said, I'll be looking at the role of international countries as well as national countries in successfully forming nation states in present day. I'll also look at the global events that have occurred and that played a huge role in forming nation states through nationalism. So I'm gonna start by looking at the reason of nationalism in Africa, which is colonialism. Colonialism, it is when Europeans arrived in Africa to seize the land of Africa and exploit its resources. During 1884 to 1885, Berlin Conference was held where Africa was divided. Colonialism came with changes of separating Africans. with borders. It terminated African cultures and identities, and African nations were regarded as colonies. Nationalism. What is nationalism? According to Philippe, nationalism can be defined as an ideological movement for the achievement of self-government and independence on behalf of the group and in the perspective of becoming a nation. So in this context, it will be Africans who were fighting against colonialism in order to gain self-independence, self-government. So the ideas that were coming from other countries, international countries, arrived in Africa through mass media, being radios, televisions, and also African intellectuals used this mass media, being newspapers, televisions, and radios, to spread the ideas of nationalism within Africa. Factors that led to success of nationalism: Pan-Africanism, which intended to bring Africans together to emphasize things such as African dream, black consciousness, black pride, dignity of blacks. By 1900, first Pan-Africanism conference was held in London. By 1919, Pan-Africanism conference was held in Paris. In both conferences, ideas of how to overcome colonialism were discussed. From 1939 to 1945, it was World War II. This World War II gave Africans an opportunity to see the weaknesses of the colonizers. They therefore managed to attack them. By the end of World War II, which is 1945, Pan-African Conference was held in Manchester, which led to Ghana's independence in 1960. The ideas that were discussed in this conference of Manchester really helped Ghana to gain its independence in 1960. Also, we have Africa for Africans by Marcus Garvey, where he states that Africa belongs to its original inhabitants, same as how America belongs to Americans. So Marcus Garvey is basically showing that Africans deserve to live. They deserve to live freely in their land, same as how Americans. And he's showing also the commonality here, being colonialism that was in Africa and in America. So with that being said, he's showing that these two lands, these two countries, they deserve to live in their country freely. So in order to write this research, I'll be using secondary sources from Google Scholar.
Good day, Dr. McQueen. My name is Namhla Masondo, and I'll be presenting about Arab nationalism under our main topic, which is nationalism. Arab nationalism is a political ideology that emphasizes the unity and shared identity of Arab people regardless of their specific origin of country. It emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries as a response to European colonialism and the Ottoman Empire's decline. So the roots of Arab nationalism can be traced back to the decline of the Ottoman Empire and the rise of European colonialism in the Arab world. As the Ottoman Empire weakened, European powers such as Britain and France began to exert their influence in the region, leading to the partitioning of the Arab world into various mandates and protectorates. Several key figures played roles in shaping and promoting Arab nationalism. One of the most prominent figures was Egyptian leader Gamal Abdel Nasser, who rose to power in the 1950s, and he championed a vision of pan-Arab unity. Nasser's leadership and anti-colonial rhetoric resonated with many Arabs across the region. He became a symbol of Arab nationalism. Another influential figure, as you can see, was philosopher and writer Michael Affleck, who co-founded the Ba'ath Party, which is a political organization that espoused Arab socialist and nationalist principles. Affleck's writings and political activism helped to popularize the idea of Arab unity and identity. Arab nationalism had a profound impact on the political and social landscape of the Arab world. It inspired anti-colonial movements and independent struggles in countries such as Egypt, Syria, Iraq, and Algeria. Some countries like Egypt, Syria, and Iraq were part of the Arab nationalism movement. They even have the same colors on their flags, but different symbols. Arab nationalist leaders sought to modernize their societies and promote social justice and assert their independence from foreign powers. However, the pursuit of Arab unity also led to conflicts and rivalries among different Arab states as competing visions of nationalism and regional interests clashed. In the contemporary era, Arab nationalism continues to shape political discourse and movements in the Arab world. The Arab Spring, which is a series of pro-democracy uprisings that swept across the Middle East and North Africa in 2010 to 2011, reflected a renewed desire for political change and social justice, echoing the ideals of Arab nationalism. So Arab nationalism, from a transnational approach, it emphasizes the shared identity and solidarity of Arabs across national borders, prioritizing a unified Arab world over individual nation-states. So some key aspects include Pan-Arabism, which is unity and solidarity among Arab states and people. Next one is anti-colonialism, which is resistance to foreign domination and imperialism. Another is shared identity, which emphasizes on common Arab history, values, and interests. Last one is transnational solidarity, which supports for Arab causes and struggles across borders. This approach has shaped Arab politics, culture, and identity, fostering a sense of shared purpose and unity among Arabs across the Middle East and North Africa. In closing, Arab nationalism has been a powerful and enduring force in the modern history of the Arab world. It began as a response to external threats and internal challenges, and it continues to shape the aspirations and struggles of Arab societies. While the idea of Arab unity and identity has inspired movements for independence and social change, it has also faced internal and also external obstacles. The future of Arab nationalism remains uncertain as the region grapples with the legacies of colonialism and geopolitical turmoil. As such, the evolution of Arab nationalism will continue to be a subject of scholarly inquiry and political significance in the years to come. Thank you.